All right, next installment on Project Python. So, dealing with setting up the GPIO and WAV interface into the whole random reply. So, I built two tables, one named GPIO, another named WAV, where you can define for the overall Jarvis system, aka computer, aka Project Python, a name which can be used as an alias elsewhere, which represents a PIN number. Some information for yourself as well if it's in or out. In being it's a switch or reading data, out means that it's pushing data out or turning on a light. Likewise, dealt with playing sounds within the overall interaction. So, made a wave table where again you can provide it a name, give it a file name that's in the Jarvis sounds directory, and some information that's helpful. So, let's see how this all looks. So, for this example, I created a lights and I signed each one of the lights or pin numbers within the GPIO table about the bow, the port, starboard, stern. Here's a switch I haven't quite gotten to, and then thrusters left and right. So in this, I define the table. I'll give it just some information, and the direction, it's binary, either in or out. So that when my systems or when the script's dealing with it, it knows which pin to turn on and off. So for you, it may be different. Just note, you can also string multiple lights on a single switch. There's a lot of ways you can set them up individually, however best suits. So in this case, I set them up each one individually, assuming that they're going to be one light, but there could be more than one on a single switch, and saved and loaded it out. And then likewise, while we're here, you see I have sounds called hailing, and it's a wave file, a hailing signal, a power up, and then an interval, computer acknowledging, and analysis sound that I just went and found and played with for this demo. So now, since we have those set up, one thing that is different is the script that builds the database will now also generate aliases within the my functions file. So what you see now is a dump of both the GPIO as well as the waves. Right, here's your haul equals 231 wave, where thruster underscore right is assigned to pin 19. So I took this approach so that you can then, within the rest of setting up your dialog, really just use short variables like this. So whenever lights underscore stern is seen, or dollar lights underscore stern, that is then replaced with the number. So this is really just to make it a simple interface and human readable. If not, you would have this GPIO string and a number and on. So likewise, something else that was added in the vars is GPIO capital and play capital. And these lead to two scripts that were created just for this. One to handle the GPIO interface, so I can pass arguments and build on arguments and customize the arguments however is needed. Right now it's on, off, blink, and status. The second is play, which then again runs an audio player for the WAV file and will do any delays if need be, and it's just more an interface. So those two were added as well. So whenever we're dealing with the dialogue, we end up with $play computer acknowledge, and then when the script runs, it will translate this and what those mean, and then actually do that. So the GPIO is really the big one that spent a lot of time figuring out and playing with. Works really well. I found that the direction of the GPIO pin definitely matters. So if you have, for this example, I'm using these groups of three and these groups of three, um, so that you have an area to watch. Right now, this is what it'll happen. What it'll look like when your system first starts up, right? Um, it's all set to N, and some of them have voltage. One being yes, it has voltage. Zero means no. So what I did on boot, as well as loading the database into Jarvis, is set those based on what the GPIO table is. So right now I'm going to run the load DB, and you'll see where these turn from in to out. So now these pins 13, 19, 26, 16, 20, and 21 are now all set for output. 0 being off, so there would be no lights on, right? So one of the things I did make into this was an analysis. So what I'm showing here is, instead of saying the words and going through the computer, this is a debugging tool that I have built in. It's Jarvis UI that lets you just open up a local web page, type in a command, and trigger it instead of having to deal with the words. I can deal with the syncing up word part later, right? So right now it's really just a troubleshooting tool. It works very well. So a command I put in there was analysis. So right there it's playing a sound.
Performing system-wide analysis. Primary thrusters are offline. Bow lights are offline. Stern lights are offline. Port lights are offline. Starboard lights are offline.
Okay, so everything's basically offline right now. All right, and that's what we see. Those that went from in to out, it was these three here and these three here. We see 0 voltage going to the Pi right now. Okay, so let's do some changes. So the command to trigger is lights. So I will just read along as I'm entering it so that you get the idea of the flow. Bow.
Specify.
On.
The bow lights are now on.
So now you see pin number 20, or GPIO 20, went from voltage 0 to 1, which means it now has a 3.3 light or voltage on it. Any light or LED on it would light up. Alright, so I also set up as a demo here 2 of them that will be set up as the engines, so left and right. So let's say you have an LED or some way to trigger on and say start your engines, right? A single command manages 2 of them. So I will show you that. It's engines.
Standing by for engines control command.
Engage. I just picked a sound for
Engaging
engine to play. It's
thrusters.
not necessarily. So engaging thrusters, you see pin 13 and 19 went to on status. So now engines are going, right? I just picked a sound. Eventually I fine-tune the sounds later to be more of a engine revving up or engine revving down or what have you, but we'll leave that for the artistic side of this. So next we see what's going on. So we would say computer analysis.
Performing system-wide analysis. Primary thrusters are online. Bow lights are online. Stern lights are offline. Port lights are offline. Starboard lights are offline.
Okay, so, and again, there may be a much better way to go about it, but this is just primary or first stages stuff, getting it all working. First, let's get it working strong, and we can get it working better. So here you see on this side we have the bow light is on, 1. The stern and port are off, and our thrusters are going. So we can also do lights, and you see the options show up there, right? Stern, port, bow, and all. We'll say all.
Specify.
And we will say on.
Illuminating the ship $username. Activating all systems lights.
Okay, so here you see now 16's on, 21's on, 26 is now on. All the lights are on. The reason why you get this $username is because there's a period at the end. So if you run into that, all you need to do is go back in, change that period, and you should be good. So which one? We can do that right now and talk a little bit more. And we were all systems on, right? All lights on. So port, starboard, all on. Here we go. And there's our culprit. Put a space after it. And we can write the database. Go back to our browser interface. We'll run db to load it.
Refreshing commands from database.
Right, then we can say lights.
Specify.
All.
Specify.
On.
Illuminating the ship commander. Activating all systems lights.
So active troubleshooting, right? This time called commander versus $username. And again, all lights are on. So likewise, we have lights all
Specify.
off.
Specify. Shutting down all lights and entering stealth mode commander.
And here you see we have 2 of them still running, which is 13 and 19. Right? Still engines are going, but the lights, which was 26, 16, 20, and 21, are all now set to 0. So that's your basics. We have GPIO and WAV file interface set up. Couple words of caution, haven't quite worked it out all entirely. If you want to play a sound, so far what I found, playing a sound first before saying something is key to preventing the Jarvis from crashing. If you have Jarvis say something and then right around play a phrase, the Jarvis won't wait to finish saying what he's saying. He will start saying and then play the WAV file, which will crash it. So I haven't figured out why that is, and trying to see if I can interact with Alex and the developers here to see if there's a good way of fixing that. But until then, be warned. All right, there you go. Great progress. Let me know what you think in the comments below.